If you are watching this before midnight, do not scroll away. Do not treat this as another video, another voice, another message blending into the noise of your day. The fact that you are here right now, at this hour, in this moment, is not random. Midnight is a threshold. It is a dividing line between what was and what will be. And if you found this before the clock resets, there is a reason. There are moments in life when heaven speaks generally, and there are moments when the word is specific, personal, timed. Tonight is about timing. You may have felt an unusual weight today, a restlessness you couldn't explain, a quiet stirring in your spirit, or perhaps you feel nothing dramatic at all, just a subtle pull that kept you watching instead of moving on. That pull matters. Before midnight, decisions feel heavier, thoughts grow louder, regrets resurface, prayers feel more urgent. There is something about the final hours of a day that exposes what we've been avoiding. And right now, you are standing at more than the end of a date on the calendar. You are standing at the edge of a shift. Stay with me, because what you are about to hear is not vague encouragement. It is not motivational language. It is not spiritual poetry. It is direct. It is clarifying. And if you leave before hearing it fully, you may miss the very instruction that was meant to meet you in this window of time. Some of you are carrying a decision you have delayed. Some of you are wrestling with fear you have not voiced. Some of you are waiting for confirmation while pretending you don't need it. And before midnight, clarity is being offered. Not tomorrow, not next week, now. This is not about superstition. It is about awareness. When a message reaches you within a specific time frame, it creates urgency. Not panic, urgency. Because obedience delayed often becomes obedience diluted. And tonight, dilution is not the assignment. If you feel a tightening in your chest right now, if you sense that this is more personal than you expected, if you know there is something you've been postponing, then this word is for you. But you must listen carefully. You must stay until the end, because the final piece of this message may be the exact confirmation you have been asking for silently. Do not let distraction steal this moment. Midnight is approaching, and before the day closes, there is something you need to hear clearly. Midnight has always carried symbolism beyond the turning of a clock. It represents a boundary, a line drawn between what has already unfolded and what has yet to begin. In the quiet seconds before the date changes, there is a stillness that feels different from the rest of the day. The noise softens, the world slows, distractions lose their grip. And in that stillness, awareness sharpens. A threshold is not just a moment, it is a crossing. You are no longer standing fully in yesterday, but you have not yet stepped into tomorrow. That space in between is powerful because it invites decision. It invites reflection. It asks you to examine what you are carrying forward and what you must leave behind. Midnight is less about time and more about transition. There are seasons in life when change builds gradually, almost invisibly. Then there are moments when the shift feels concentrated, compressed into a single point of awareness. Midnight often becomes that point. It exposes unfinished thoughts. It magnifies unresolved choices. It highlights the areas where you have hesitated. The darkness of night has a way of removing illusions that daylight can hide. When you find yourself listening to a message before midnight, it is not superstition to pause and ask why. It is attentiveness. You could be doing many other things. You could be asleep, distracted, entertained, yet you are here, reflective, considering something deeper. That in itself signals that you are standing at more than the end of a day. You are standing at an invitation to cross over differently than you began. Threshold moments demand awareness because they are brief. Once midnight passes, the symbolic weight shifts. The opportunity to end one day intentionally is gone. You can still change tomorrow, yes, but there is something unique about choosing before the line is crossed. It is an act of intentional closure. It is saying, I will not carry this into the next season. Midnight as a spiritual threshold also confronts avoidance. During the day, you can postpone reflection. You can busy yourself with tasks, conversations, responsibilities. But at night, when the world quiets, what remains rises to the surface. The decision you have delayed feels heavier. The fear you have ignored becomes clearer. The conviction you have silenced grows louder. This is why threshold moments are sacred. They strip away distraction and leave you with truth. You begin to see what truly matters. You recognize what has been draining you. You sense where change is required. The question becomes whether you will respond before the clock resets or allow another cycle to begin unchanged. Crossing a threshold is rarely dramatic outwardly. There may be no visible sign that anything has shifted. Yet internally, a decision made at the edge of a boundary carries authority. It establishes direction. It declares that the next season will not look identical to the last. It draws a quiet line in your own heart. Midnight does not force transformation. It presents opportunity. It offers a defined moment in which awareness and action can align. The significance is not in the hour itself, but in your willingness to recognize that some moments are invitations to step forward deliberately rather than drift passively into whatever comes next. There's a difference between knowing what you should do and actually doing it. Most people do not struggle with ignorance, they struggle with delay. You have already sensed the instruction, you have already felt the conviction. The question has not been, what is the right step? But, when will I take it? And the longer obedience is postponed, the more its clarity begins to blur. Urgency is often misunderstood. It is not panic, it is not pressure, it is not emotional intensity. True urgency is clarity with a clock attached to it. It is the awareness that a window is open now, and that window will not remain open indefinitely. When something is placed on your heart before midnight, the timing carries weight because delay has consequences. Obedience delayed does not always look dramatic. Life may continue outwardly unchanged, but internally something shifts. Each time you postpone what you know to be right, sensitivity dulls slightly. Conviction softens. The once clear prompting becomes negotiable. You begin to justify waiting. You convince yourself that tomorrow will be just as suitable. And slowly, what felt urgent becomes optional. Destiny is not usually altered by one catastrophic decision. It is reshaped by small, repeated hesitations. A conversation not initiated, a boundary not established, a commitment not honored, a step not taken. Each delay seems minor in isolation, but over time, those small hesitations redirect the course of your life in subtle but significant ways. There are moments when obedience must be immediate because the opportunity attached to it is time-sensitive. A relationship may be in a fragile place where honesty now could restore alignment, but silence could harden distance. A decision may be waiting for your courage, and hesitation may cause the door to close quietly. An internal surrender may be required tonight so that tomorrow does not begin with the same unresolved weight. Delay often disguises itself as wisdom. You tell yourself you are being careful, thoughtful, strategic. Sometimes that is true, but other times delay is fear in refined clothing. It is the desire to avoid discomfort. It is the hope that clarity will become easier tomorrow. It is the attempt to preserve control rather than release it. Urgency before midnight invites you to act while conviction is still sharp, while your awareness is heightened, while the window of reflection is open. When you respond quickly to what you know is right, you protect the integrity of your path. You strengthen your responsiveness. You reinforce the connection between discernment and action. There is also a spiritual principle at work. When you honor instruction promptly, greater clarity follows. Immediate obedience creates momentum. It signals readiness for deeper trust. But when instruction is repeatedly delayed, silence can follow, not as punishment but as consequence. When you consistently ignore guidance, the guidance becomes quieter. Tonight is not about dramatic transformation. It is about one step, one honest decision, one act of surrender, one conversation, one release. It may seem small, but small steps taken at the right time alter direction. Destiny is not a distant concept. It is shaped in moments like this, in the space between awareness and response. And the longer that space stretches, the more direction begins to shift without you realizing it. There is a fear you have not named out loud. You have felt it, certainly. You have worked around it. You have distracted yourself from it, but you have not confronted it directly. And tonight before midnight, it is rising closer to the surface because it knows its time of hiding is ending. Hidden fear rarely appears as obvious terror. It shows up as hesitation, as procrastination, as rationalization. It whispers, "Not yet." It suggests, "What if this goes wrong?" It magnifies every possible negative outcome while shrinking the potential good. And because it sounds logical, you mistake it for wisdom. This fear may be tied to rejection. You are afraid that if you speak honestly, you will lose connection. It may be tied to failure. You are afraid that if you step forward, you will not succeed. It may be tied to identity. You are afraid that if you surrender control, you will no longer recognize yourself. Whatever form it takes, it has been quietly shaping your decisions. Fear is subtle when it remains unexamined. It influences your tone. It adjusts your expectations downward. It convinces you to settle for less than what you sensed was possible. And over time, it becomes familiar, comfortable even. You begin to build your life around avoiding it rather than confronting it. But midnight has a way of exposing what daylight disguises. In the quiet, fear becomes more visible. You cannot outrun it with noise. You cannot bury it under activity. It stands before you, asking to be acknowledged, not so it can dominate you, but so it can lose its power. Confronting fear does not require dramatic gestures. It begins with honesty, naming it clearly, saying, "This is what I am actually afraid of." When fear remains vague, it feels enormous. When you define it, it becomes specific. And what is specific can be addressed. You may discover that the outcome you fear most is not as catastrophic as you imagined. Or you may realize that even if the worst-case scenario occurred, you would still remain intact. Fear exaggerates consequences. It convinces you that discomfort equals destruction. But growth often hides on the other side of discomfort. There is also a deeper layer to hidden fear, the fear of obedience itself. Sometimes you know what is being asked of you. You sense the direction clearly, but obedience means change. It means stepping into unfamiliar territory. It means releasing certainty for trust, and that transition can feel destabilizing. Yet the cost of avoiding fear is often greater than the cost of confronting it. Avoidance prolongs tension. It stretches anxiety over days, weeks, sometimes years. Confrontation compresses it into a moment of courage. One decision, one step, one honest admission. Before midnight, you are being invited to look directly at what you have been circling, not with judgment, not with shame, but with clarity. Fear loses authority when exposed to truth. It thrives in secrecy. It weakens in awareness. You may feel resistance even now as you consider this. A tightening, a desire to shift focus. That resistance is revealing. It points directly to what needs attention. And the moment you stop negotiating with fear and start challenging it, something inside you steadies, not because the path ahead becomes easy, but because you are no longer pretending that fear is wisdom. You have been waiting for confirmation, even if you have not admitted it. On the surface, you tell yourself you are still deciding, still weighing options, still gathering information. But beneath that process, there is already a direction forming in your spirit. You sensed it days ago, maybe weeks ago, a quiet knowing, a pull that did not fade. And yet you paused, hoping for something external to validate what you already felt internally. Confirmation rarely arrives as spectacle. It does not always come with dramatic signs or unmistakable announcements. More often, it comes as repetition. The same message surfacing through different avenues, the same thought returning during prayer, the same scripture, conversation, or circumstance echoing what you have been sensing privately. When something repeats gently but persistently, it is not coincidence. It is alignment. You may have asked for clarity in subtle ways. If this is right, make it clear. If this is not for me, close the door. And since then, you have been watching, interpreting, waiting. But confirmation does not always remove all risk. It does not eliminate uncertainty. It simply strengthens conviction enough that you can move forward without needing absolute guarantees. The choice you have been postponing feels heavy because it carries consequence. It may involve stepping away from something familiar. It may require saying yes to something that stretches you. It may demand ending a pattern you have grown accustomed to. And because the decision matters, you have treated it carefully, That caution is understandable, but there comes a moment when caution turns into avoidance. Confirmation often arrives before comfort. You may feel clarity while still feeling nervous. That does not mean the direction is wrong. It means growth is involved. If every decision felt easy, it would not transform you. The presence of healthy tension does not invalidate confirmation. Sometimes it accompanies it. Notice what has been consistent, not the noise of opinions around you, not the fluctuations of your mood, but the steady thread that has remained, the option that continues to return to your mind with quiet authority, the path that, even when you try to dismiss it, rises again with peace rather than panic. That steadiness is revealing. You may also recognize that delays have not brought additional clarity. You waited for more signs, more reassurance, more perfect timing, yet the original sense has not changed. In fact, it may have grown stronger. When delay does not dissolve conviction, it often means the conviction was genuine. Confirmation is not about removing responsibility. It is about strengthening resolve. It is the gentle but firm reminder that you are not imagining this direction, that you are not being impulsive, that the stirring you feel is not random. It is the assurance that the step ahead, though significant, is aligned. Before midnight, you are being invited to stop searching for louder validation and trust the quiet clarity already present. The confirmation you were waiting for may not look dramatic, but it is here. It has been here, repeating softly, patiently, waiting for you to recognize that sometimes the answer you seek externally has already been settled internally. There's a kind of peace that only comes after surrender, not the fragile peace that depends on circumstances aligning perfectly, but a deeper steadiness that settles in once you stop resisting what you already know. Surrender is often misunderstood as weakness, as giving up, as losing control. In truth, it is the release of the illusion of control. It is choosing trust over tension. You have been carrying something tightly, a plan, an outcome, an expectation. You have tried to manage every variable, anticipate every risk, protect yourself from every possible disappointment. And the effort has been exhausting. Even if no one else sees it, you feel it. The constant mental calculations, the quiet anxiety beneath your daily routines, the subtle pressure to keep everything from unraveling. Immediate surrender interrupts that cycle. It is not passive resignation. It is active trust. It is saying, I will take the step I am being asked to take, and I will release the outcome. That release is where peace begins, because much of your unrest has not come from the decision itself, but from your attempt to guarantee its results. When you surrender before midnight, you cross the threshold lighter than you entered it. You stop negotiating with what you already know is right. You stop replaying the same internal debates. You stop asking for more signs when clarity has already been given. There is a quiet strength in that choice, a firmness that does not need to be loud. Peace after surrender does not mean every external detail resolves instantly. Conversations may still need to happen. Consequences may still unfold. Adjustments may still be required, but internally, something stabilizes. The constant friction between conviction and hesitation disappears. You are no longer divided within yourself. Division drains energy. When part of you wants to obey and part of you wants to delay, you live in tension. You smile outwardly while wrestling inwardly. You move forward externally while stalling internally. Surrender reunites you. It aligns your heart and your actions, and that alignment produces calm. There is also relief in releasing outcomes you were never meant to control. You were responsible for obedience, not orchestration, for the step, not the entire staircase. When you surrender, you acknowledge that your role is limited but meaningful. You do not need to see the full map to take the next right turn. Some of you fear that surrender will cost you too much, that if you let go, you will lose something essential. But often, what you lose is anxiety. What you lose is the burden of pretending you can manage everything. What you lose is the exhausting attempt to secure certainty in an uncertain world. Peace is not found in perfect prediction. It is found in faithful response. When you respond immediately to what you sense is required, even with trembling hands, a calm follows that cannot be manufactured. It settles gradually, a quiet assurance that you have done what was asked of you in this moment. Before midnight, surrender is an invitation, not to abandon responsibility, but to fulfill it fully and then release it, to take the step and let the rest unfold, to trust that obedience carries its own protection. And as you release what you have been gripping so tightly, you begin to feel the difference. A stillness replacing striving, a steadiness replacing strain, a peace that does not depend on everything going according to your script.